Welcome to Beyond Words Presents. My name is Whitney Diffenderfer, your host, and today I am here with dating, relationship, and sex expert Wendy Newman, who is also the author of our newest book, 121 First Dates, How to Succeed. Let's see if I get this subtitle right, Wendy. How to Succeed at Online Dating, Fall in Love, and Live Happily Ever After. Really, right?
Yes, really.
Awesome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on today.
I am thrilled to death to have you on here because there's so many people who are looking for love and they're trying to figure things out. And I just want to let everyone out there who's watching know that you can send in your questions for Wendy. So be sure to use the Google Hangouts app, or you can also use the hashtag BWPresents, and we'll get those questions answered for you. And be sure always, as always, to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube. So Wendy, the first question that I have for you really is sort of the general big one. What is the biggest mistake that people make when they date?
Wow, there are so many that I could just roll right out. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they date, especially if we're talking about online dating, is they put a lot of emphasis on the first date and making that first date really magical in case that person is the one and you want to have a really great story to tell everybody about your magical first date. And if you're dating a lot, if you're dating to find your partner and you're dating a lot, it's tricky to recreate newly with a new stranger every time that magical moment that you'll look back on and cherish. I recommend people not do that and understand that you're meeting a stranger just like it'd be like trying to create this magical moment with someone you met at the booth next to you at a conference. They're just total strangers to you. So I recommend something easy, definitely something free if you can, a walk in the park or an inexpensive date like a cup of coffee or a drink out in the world somewhere. So you can actually just meet and greet the stranger, and then if sparks start to fly, then you can create that magical, memorable, story-worthy date on date number 2.
So I will throw out there, before I met my husband, really, and I've told Wendy this before, but how I met my husband was through online dating, and I went on a lot of first dates. So what you just said in terms of, trying to create that special magical moment every first date, it got really exhausting. And you went on 121 first dates, as it says here in the book, and so I can imagine that fell by the wayside rather quickly.
Yeah, it really did. And I realized that there are a lot of things that we'll do by nature that will have us burn out very quickly, and that's definitely one of them. And I'm very much into giving your heart and your time and your authenticity and your vulnerability, but in the lightest touch possible. So you're not over giving your energy in a way that you've spent it so much on things that don't work out that on date number 5 or 10 or 15 you're just out. So that's part of what the book's about.
Well, and that's the question I think that a lot of us, some of us may think about, some of us may not, is what can we do to work on ourselves to have us be actually authentic and vulnerable on that first date? Because I know a lot of people go into a first date thinking, okay, this person wants to meet this kind of person, and without even actually thinking about it, it just happens. So how do you make sure that you're showing up as you on that first date?
The very first step is to be conscious of it and to know that that's an automatic default for us, that with time and practice you're going to get good at being yourself. And if you think about it, what a weird thing to say, like you have to practice being yourself, but you do, because you show up and in my case I would meet him and I would like him and I would be listening for the things that he's saying about what he's looking for, and my brain would automatically start to think about how I could show that side of me or how I could become that thing, or there's no room for who I truly am in that. So definitely just the first step is acknowledging that your default is going to have you be something, anything, to be what the person across from you wants, and being yourself is the last thing that it would ever occur to you to be. And just knowing that going in is perfect, because then you can go in and sit down and be conscious of revealing yourself, showing yourself, and interacting in ways that are truly who you are. And another thing that we do that keeps us from being that is we go in with an agenda. If we go in with the checklist of who are you and what do you do for a living and how many people do you manage and what's your life all about, it puts a lot of pressure on. And so I liked questions that could definitely go deep and could bring out who this person uniquely is, but gave them all the room to decide how much they were going to be sharing and how much they weren't. So a good question would be, what do you love about your life? Or what lights you up? What are you passionate about? Or who is your underdog and why? And that just gives them all the breathing room in the world to answer those questions. And the answers are generally uplifting. What do you love about your life? What works about your life? Is a good way to sort of dig into their world without crying, because they hold the keys to what they say there. And you can get a lot of really juicy stuff.
Well, and the great thing I love about those questions is that when you do ask those kinds of questions, it ends up being there's no answer, specific answer that they would think that you want to hear, because they're, what kind of job do you do? I mean, it's very specific, and well, a lot of people know it's they want to hear that I do a high-paying, high-powered job. So even if I don't, I'm going to make something up. So there's less possibility for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, and one of the things that I'm curious about, because when I was dating online, I made a long list of rules for myself, and one of the rules that I made was that every guy that I got to the point of actually physically going on a date with, I would give him 2 dates, because the first date is kind of a throwaway, and the second date was really more where you would get to talk about those sort of deeper subjects. Were there cases when you felt like that wasn't how do you know when that next date is necessary? I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's really good. I try to not live by rules, but I think that you're dead on with the first date is a throwaway date. Now, in my case, I didn't have specific numbers. I would just check in with my gut. Not my heart, not my head, but my gut, because my gut pretty much knows things. There were dates where the first date, it was very obvious that we just weren't a fit. There was this really great guy, and the 3 things he really loved, he loved children. He was a elementary school teacher. He loved working on DIY projects around his suburban home, and he really loved putting a lot of extracurricular work out into the world. Those were the 3 things he was most excited about. Well, at the time I was 45, and I purposely didn't have any children. I don't love children of young ages. They need things that I don't want to give them, like my attention, and I'm selfish that way. And so I couldn't relate to him on that level. Even though I look very suburban, I live in an urban city, and I don't really like the yard and the suburban DIY projects. It's not my thing. It's not a way I would enjoy spending my weekends. And I am a workaholic, but I would really like to tame that and work less. So the only thing that we had in common that he was passionate about was something that I was trying to get rid of. And I just could see we weren't a fit. And he was so annoyed with me that I wouldn't give him another date, he said, aren't you even going to give us a chance? But I could see that we weren't a fit. Our lifestyles were not a fit. So in those types of situations where there's a very clear deal breaker, or you could just see that you two really don't have a matching future, that you're not going in the same direction, there's no point for a second date. I have a really good friend who is a matchmaker, and she's down in LA. She's amazing. She's got hundreds of marriages under her belt, and she swears that it takes 3 times for a woman to have a man grow on her. If she's not feeling it on the first or second date, that third date can flip her. And we don't always get flipped, but sometimes we do. So her number is 3.
Interesting. I was just thinking about my experience with my husband, and the first 2 dates I was kind of like, eh. And then the third date was exactly that. It's like that's when we really connected and we had a fantastic time. And yeah, oh, that's fascinating. So, and here's something else that I ran into a lot, and I'm sure lots and lots of people run into as they're dating, and I'm sure you ran into hundreds of times in your process of dating. But how do you elegantly, gracefully break it off with someone that you're not interested, but you can tell they really are?
I try and give as many hints as I can so it doesn't get awkward and if they're not outwardly asking. And anyone who's dated for any length of time is pretty great at picking up the cues. So what that would really look like is at the end of the date, right about the time they'd ask for another date, I would say something in a very, not mean, but definitely like not super excited tone of thank you so much for coming out to meet me tonight. I had a really good time getting to know you. Take care. Like that that does it. But if they're very excited or new at dating, hey, can I see you Saturday night? Thank you so much for asking, and I can see that we're not quite a fit. So I don't want to waste your time.
That's so nice.
And still so awkward.
I know. It's the hardest thing because I know for myself is that I'm a very, very nice person, and I don't ever want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. So my initial reaction is just to be kind of like, okay, let's just go on one more and see how that goes. Even though I've done exactly what you said, looked at our interests, looked at all that, and it doesn't line up. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, it's tricky. And the other thing that we women do is we say, oh yeah, definitely call me. And then we we dodge the call, right? Mm-hmm. Forever. And a lot of women think that that's a graceful way out. And it's just not. I mean, if you've ever been on the other side of being really crazy about someone and got the rug pull or the no callback, when he doesn't call you back, it's heartbreaking. So don't put people through paces. I always thought it was important and kind to tell the truth and just be very as gentle as possible, even though it's totally awkward. Yeah.
Well, and so you also bring up the other end of things, what happens when you're more interested than they are, and they either brush you off, like don't pick up your calls, or they actually do like the graceful, thank you very much, but I don't think it's a fit. How do you keep going? Because it's even if they're graceful about it, it's still kind of a gut punch.
Well, what you do is you text them about 15 times a day, because then if with your persistence, they'll flip. No.
No. I'm like, I think that might get, some restraining orders pulled on you or something. Ugh. But yeah, that's our impulse. I mean, that's totally the impulse, is to just be like, no, but really, I felt it. Why didn't you? Come on.
Weren't you there? Wasn't it amazing? So, yeah, the best thing, and this is the hardest thing for me to tell any person, because you and I can sit here talking about it very rationally because our hearts aren't breaking in this moment. But it's hard, it's painful, I'm sorry it's happening, and at the end of the day, they're doing you a favor for doing that now instead of in 9 months from now or 8 years from now. I once dated somebody I was really crazy about. We're actually even friends today, but at the time it took me a minute. But I dated him for something like 6 months, and at dinner one night he told me that not only, he wasn't even breaking up with me, it was just sort of casual conversation, when he said, yeah, I knew by the third date that there wasn't anything permanent between us.
Wow.
Yeah, we were months and months and months in. But that was not the first sign. I knew better. And it's one of those things, if I would have listened to my gut, and also my friends, I would have called it sooner, but I wanted it so bad that I was going to make it happen. And anytime you're on a date and you are working really hard to flip them, to make it happen, to show them how amazing you are, that's not a good sign.
And I can't remember who told me this. It might have been my brother, but he said something to the effect of, if they don't want you, like if they're not interested, then they're not the right person for you. And while that sounds, even when I say it right now, it sounds so logical, in that moment when you're just like, I felt it. It was so awesome. It's like, oh, wow, really? Yeah. Uh-huh. It's like a revelation.
Yeah, you know how you can tell it's the one? The one calls back. The one wants to be with you.
Isn't that weird that that's like it? That seems like one of the last qualifications that we have for it being the one is that they actually want to be with you.
Yes, exactly. As you are and as you are not. Exactly.
Why do we do that to ourselves? I'm sure you've seen tons of women who do that. What is it that drives us to want what we can't or shouldn't even have?
Well, when we get in that space, it's because we want love, we want partnership. We have a scarcity conversation that if I can't make it work with this one, there won't be one any better. That scarcity mentality makes him way or her way more amazing than they really are. And that scarcity mentality makes the threat of losing that perceived opportunity of a life together really intense. So it's just biology saying, mate now, pick one, anyone will do. The one in front of you is the one. You know why? Because they're in front of you. Go.
So don't listen to biology. Don't listen to scarcity. Listen to your gut.
Yeah. And no,
Got
there's
it.
more. There's 7 billion people on the planet. There's more.
Absolutely. So, in your online profiles, and there's advice about this all over the place. So, I'm just curious what you believe. Like, what should you make sure is there, or what should you make sure is not there?
Oh my gosh, I have the weirdest answer for this. I think that dating experts around the world would cringe. But I think what you should put on the homepage of your profile is something about who you are that makes you unique about who you are, right? And then you can even make walking on the beach sound unique if you work hard enough at it. But out of all of the profiles that I've seen, and I have read thousands and thousands and thousands of women's profiles, we are all nurturing. We all love our family and friends, and they're the most important core part of our life. We love travel. Oh my God, we love travel. We love cooking. We can go from jeans to a gown in one day, and we hike and we bike and we over and over and over and over. So figure out a way to make yourself stand out. But the thing that I think people will cringe over is in the who I'm looking for section, the summary section. At one point, I just got I don't know, a bee in my bonnet or something, and I just really wanted women to say the right match for me. I'm looking for the right match for me, and nothing else. Nothing else. Because what our knee-jerk response to writing that piece is to put every single dingle piece of information we can about what we're looking for, because we think that we can vet him if we put in honest and open and financially responsible and masculine and spiritual and honest. Like the liars are going to read that and go, oh, I'm out. No, they're going to lie about being honest. But it's overwhelming and it's intense and it's confusing, and oftentimes we're leading with the end game in those statements, that partner where we can walk hand in hand on the beach and snuggle up in movies, and we'll paint these pictures that he hasn't even met you yet. So why don't you not do that? It's great to paint pictures of what you can do together in the we, but I recommend that you don't lead with that sort of fairy tale ending coupley stuff.
Well, and I love that, actually, saying the right match for me, because we spend, as girls, it's like we spend our entire lifetime as children, or teenagers, middle schoolers, that kind of age, coming up with this laundry list of what you want in a guy. Like, I don't know where that comes from, but it's like I had a very specific list. I was like, he's going to be tall, he's going to be a musician, he's going to, love to go to musicals, he's going to, and I mean, it was long, very, very long. I thought about it for, 15 years. And then I somehow let that go, and the man that I ended up marrying, he's not tall. He hates musicals. He is a musician, but I think that's kind of just sort of, it just happened. But in letting go of that laundry list, I was really able to kind of see him for him and not as a comparison.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, comparison to an ideal man that doesn't exist. You know, we came up with the fairy tale prince, and he'd come in a big, tall, white horse or brown horse or multicolored horse, whatever your daydream was, right? And he was tall, at least 4 inches taller than you, and brunette, and he would sing to you, "You have arrived into my life." Yeah, no. I had a...
You mean he doesn't exist, Wendy?
And a 4-page list. It turns out that Dave did have everything on my 4-page list, but I made a different list that didn't have much to do with height and eye color and that sort of thing.
Because height and eye color really has a great bearing on whether or not it's going to be a good match, right?
Or whether he's a kind person. We'll just disregard the kind person if he's 6'5" with brown hair. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So well, I should mention this before we get too far into it. I'm just having too much fun. Wendy's book, 121 First Dates, just came out, and you can go to our website and get it for $10. You can get this great, awesome, it's a pretty big book for $10. Just go to beyondword.com/Newman, Newman, and you can grab that today. Wendy, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is that I know that you and your partner, you guys aren't actually married. You guys have just decided to create a partnership, and for so many people in our country, marriage is the goal. So why not get married, and why, like, where would you see signs for people maybe that marriage isn't exactly where they should be headed?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the only reason that I should get married is for everyone else to stop looking at me like I'm not legitimate. Because it's the highest romantic status I could have. And I think someone once said to me, and it was a dating coach, said something like, well, don't you think you two could go the extra mile to show your commitment? Wow. Now, we looked at, so my partner and I, between the two of us, we have over 40 years of marriage under our belt. So it's not like we don't know what marriage is. We both had a first marriage. We know what it is, and we know what it isn't. And there are things about our culture, and of course we could have married and made up our own vows and whatnot, and we kind of did. But there are things that naturally come with marriage that really just didn't work for us in terms of becoming one. And no, we're actually two different individual people, right, with our own autonomy. So we didn't want that whole joining as one till death do you part kind of business. It just wasn't who we are. So we sat down, and about 8 months into our relationship, because we decided we were going to have a commitment ceremony at the 9-month mark, right about the time one would get married. And we designed our own vows, our own ceremony, and we really, from scratch, cooked it up fresh to see what was it we did want to commit to, and what were the things that we don't want to commit to. And we really looked at our whole lives, who we've been, what we've had, what didn't work, where we want to go, and we decided to have a ceremony that was really setting us up to win with each other and setting us up for the long haul with each other. And so we did just that. We had a really lovely, very small, intimate ceremony at the Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco, a very beautiful, old, grand hotel. But we were very traditional about it. We had the ceremony exactly 1 week before we moved in together. So I think weddings are great. I love to go to weddings. They're a lot of fun, but they're just not for who we are. And I think people should do what works for them.
Yeah, and it's we actually it sparked a huge conversation in our office about, you know, what does it mean to be married? What does it mean to not be married? Well, to make the choice to be in partnership and not actually get married. And I think it's something that for a lot of people, it's the given when they get into a relationship. And so I wonder if just it's a different perspective. And you do talk about it in your book. So it's one of those things that, you know, if marriage is something that you're not really down for, but you still want to be in a relationship, grab Wendy's book. It'll be some great perspective for you.
Yeah, and I think Goldie Hawn has, you know, given us enough history to know that it can work. But like I said, we both have a lot of years, decades of marriage between the two of us, and I know that he and I both feel like we're just as committed, if not more, than we were in our actual previous marriages. So it doesn't, a ceremony in front of 200 people and God doesn't make us any more committed than we would by doing what we did.
Yeah. So here's the fun question. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for sharing all that. It's amazing. What was your worst date?
Oh my God.
Out of 121, you've got to have some good stories.
Well, I have two. One of them is X-rated, so I won't tell you about that one.
Okay.
But it's in the book, number 90.
Okay.
It involved one of us getting naked, not me. Actually, there were two of those also in the book. So I had a couple of doozies, but the worst date, how the book got written actually was, it was not a plan. I did not ever intend on going on 121 first dates. It wasn't a double dog dare. It wasn't this big challenge I made up. No, it was just me trying to find my man. So what happened was, I didn't know the number at the time, but it turned out to be number 54. And it was such a horrendous date that I had to write about it, because at the time, all my girlfriends who were married were complaining about their husbands and how boring marriage was and how exciting my life was, and I was out there dating. So I wanted to keep them married. And I started a blog to share my fun dating experiences so they would kiss their husbands goodnight and love their married life. And it worked. So it wasn't actually a dating book. It was just stories about my dates. And the first one was pretty bad. He said he was 48, I was 43. And when I arrived, I bet he was probably closer to 78.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I think homeless also, by the way he was dressed. But that wasn't the worst part. He told me that, okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
He told me that he was injured, and could he tell me the story of what happened? And I said, sure. And he said, are you sure? And I said, sure, I'm sure. I wasn't sure. And he said, I got in a motorcycle accident last Friday, and I swear to God, these are his words. I got in a motorcycle accident last Friday, and I hurt my groin area, and all the blood rushed to my Johnson. And they're trying to think about if they're going to do surgery, but I don't want to do it for a month because I don't want to wreck potential erections in the future. But I'm telling you all this because the Johnson is erect, and it would be like being on Viagra. I'd be really fun in the sack. Do you want to come home with me? 70-year-old homeless man. I had worse dates after that, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and he stuck me with the bill.
Oh. No second date there.
What do you think?
You probably cut the first date short, I would think.
I tried. I failed at that. Boy,
Oh, no.
that's a don't do what I did date story.
Got it. Okay, so that was number 54?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, and that's what I love about your book is like you're so generous, I think is the word that just immediately comes to mind with talking about all of this crazy stuff that you went through, and then you so very intelligently and awesomely look back at it and you're kind of like, yeah, so this is what I did, so you don't do it. Because I know a lot of people look at your book and they're like, I don't want to go on 121 first dates. And just know, if you're watching, just know that the intention is that Wendy did, so you don't have to.
Exactly. I would never want that for any woman or man anywhere. And for sure, there were things that I learned right up to the very end of my 10 years of dating that if I had known much sooner, it would never have taken so long. And when I say 10 years, the first like 1 through 7, that was about a that was about a 6-year span because I hung out with people for a couple of years in there, even though I knew that we weren't quite a fit. I was lazy and just hung out, right? Yep. So the real busy part of dating 8 through 121 happened within about a 3-year period, 3 or 4 year period. And I don't want that for anybody. And that's why I show what they did wrong, what I did wrong. There are plenty of, oh my God, look what I did, what an idiot type of stories in here. So yeah, you don't have to. And a lot of the things we do are by nature. So I can help you shortcut that.
So here's a question that I've seen articles on all over the place. Do you or do you not go Dutch?
That question. I actually really like it when a man provides if he wants to. So if he's offering, I am not going to fight him for the check. Instead, I'm going to appreciate what he's providing and thank him very generously for doing that. And oftentimes men do want to treat, but they do need appreciation at the other end of that equation to feel like they got a good deal. To spend money on top of money on top of money and get entitlement is just crap. So the equation is if they pay, you owe them something. And it isn't a night in bed, although if you wanted to do that, that's your own business. But it's one of the things we worry about. If he buys the expensive dinner, do I need to put out now? No. What you need to do is appreciate the moment and what he's provided for you in a way that really lands for him. And if it looks like he wants you to go Dutch, then yeah. And my favorite line is something that my best friend gave me, actually, and that is to ask a man instead of doing that fake purse grab thing, just ask him, may I help? And that way it still leaves the ball in his court to make that call, and he might tell you to pay for the tip or to pay for the whole thing, like in the case of number 54. Like that.
Well, and I really appreciate that too, because even in other relationships, you know, when you're just going out to dinner with a friend or something like that, sometimes you play that really stupid game of trying to grab the bill first, and it just gets awkward and weird, and just so you could use that line in that case too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I once heard a story from a man about how he took a woman out and he was really excited to treat her, and unbeknownst to him, when she had gone to the restroom, she grabbed the bill and paid it behind his back. And from her angle, she just thought she was showing how generous she was, but from where he stood, she looked controlling, and he did not like it.
Oh. And it's so interesting because there's all of this. I live in Portland, and so there's a lot of the feminism, like, no, I'm going to pay for my own meal because I'm a woman and I make my own money, and so I can provide for myself, and it kind of extends to I don't want men opening doors for me, like all of these things that are very traditional, and it's sometimes hard to know, like just exactly like you said, what is going to have the man feel like you appreciate it, as opposed to just being entitled, as well as I don't know how to phrase it, but you know what I'm getting at?
I do, and it's one of the things that I would really like to get through to all women is I want to demonstrate for you how you're coming across when you do that, because one of the things we value is self-reliance. And sometimes we confuse self-confidence with self-reliance because we've been taught to be very self-reliant. And self-reliance is awesome. You should totally be self-reliant and big in your world. Do amazing things. But if you want a partner, you can't be independent. You can be independent or you can have a partner. You can't have both. Independent is on your own, right? But imagine, Whitney, and everyone who's watching, imagine if I were your friend and you came over and you were in my home and we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and you know I was really going through something terrible, and you started talking to me, and how you would talk to me is, with sympathy and love and generosity, and you'd maybe have some really wise advice for me, some sage advice, because you'd been through the thing that I'm upset about, right? Let's say that's the case. And you showed up in that really loving, generous, giving space, and I just did like this, like, Whitney, it's so good that you came over, and I'm glad we could hang out together, but I really got this. I don't need anything from you. Like, would that feel good to you? Would it feel, if I blocked every single way that you wanted to contribute to me, would you hang out with me anymore?
No.
If there was just nowhere for me to give to you, would I be in your life? No, we want to make a difference for each other, and men need to provide. And if they can't make a difference in some way, and I don't mean money, but that's one expression of it, they need to provide help, advice, holding space, fun, humor, a good time. When they go on the date, they want to produce a result of providing you a good time. That's why they say, where do you want to go? They don't care where they go. They want to go where you'll be happy. And then we say, I don't know, anywhere is good. No, anywhere is not good. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. But they need to make a difference. And if you're so together that you don't need him to open a door, you don't need him to buy you dinner, you don't need him to give you advice, if you don't take anything because you've got this, he will walk. You got it. You're under control. You got it. You got it all. You need him for nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about it that way, because I know that my mother has taught me, I mean, she's an incredibly strong woman, and she's always just taught me, she's just like, you are your own woman. You can take care of everything yourself. You don't really need anybody else. If you want to have a partner, then, you can look into that. But the thing that it just came to my mind when you were talking about him wanting to be able to contribute to my life. My husband's always trying to fix things, and I know it's a male thing. They really like to fix things. And I constantly just remind myself that that's because he loves me and he wants to take care of me. And I think that's something that happens to a lot of women, is that we're just like, don't fix me! I can do it myself! And it's just their expression of love.
Yeah. And it's a constant thing. I mean, I'm not perfect at it. Just today, my partner asked if he could run an errand for me, and I knew that he did not know what that entailed. The errand was running to the post office to mail out my new book. But there are 38 books in the bag, so it's not like go to the post office for 5 minutes, right? It's go to the post office and stand there for an hour while they weigh all those books. And so I said no. I vetoed it. I said, oh, thank you so much for offering. You don't know what it entails. I don't want you to do that. So it still happens. I do it all the time. You probably do it all the time, where we have that self-reliance of, I got this. But man, what a difference it would make if you just said yes to the things they're offering to fix and problems they're offering to solve.
So I'll mention your book, and then I have a question about trying to change people. So one more time, 121 First Dates. I'm just having the best conversation with you, Wendy. This is fantastic. You can get it for $10, which is an incredible price because it's normally $16. So you can jump onto our website at beyondword.com/Newman, Newman, and grab that for $10. Wendy, one of the things that I know a lot of people do, and I don't know that they do it, and I know I did it, is that when they get into a relationship, they're kind of like, oh, okay, this is somebody that we can start here, and then, I'll adjust this, tweak this, shift this, and then they'll be the perfect partner. And everybody always says trying to change somebody else doesn't work. So how do you not do that?
You just don't do it.
Or how do you be aware of when you are doing it too?
Well, for the people who are single and are watching, this is something you need to pay attention to when you're dating. Does that person have enough of what you need? Does this person line up in a way that, yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but the things that aren't perfect, you're not going to change. That you can live with that. And that is, in fact, the #1 reason that I was single for so long, and that I went on 121 first dates. I'll tell you I was single that long because I knew who I was. I knew what I was looking for. I knew what I needed. I knew what my deal breakers were. So I wasn't spending time and years wrapped up, like I did in the beginning, with someone that I knew I couldn't get what I needed from them for the long haul, right? Because sometimes there's someone really cute standing in front of you and it's not ideal, and there's even deal breakers, but they're there and they're cute and they like you, and why not? No.
And biology is saying, he's standing in front of you, he's standing in front of you.
Go get him, go get him. So the short of it is I knew who I was, I knew what I needed, I knew what my deal breakers were, but the most important part was I wasn't going to change anybody. If my man did not show up fully baked, he was not the right person for me. If he didn't show up in a way that I already respected him for who he is and what he'd accomplished and his talents and passions and ways of being, the ways he interacted with me in what would be a partnership, I was out. And it might seem shallow to not give people a try and to train them or change them or grow with them, but not at this stage of the game. If I were 22, maybe, but not now.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I really came up against when I was dating my husband was that one of his favorite things in the whole world is playing video games. And I, like millions of people, I'm sure, in the United States, just think that video games they can create issues for men. You know all this stuff. It's like they cause violent tendencies. They do like the list goes and goes and goes and goes. And I, instead of immediately judging him based on that, because that was one of those more surface things, I just asked him, I was like, why do you love video games? And he told me, he's like, because I love the stories. I love going through and I love learning the stories, and I think they're really well done. And I was like, well, okay, that's kind of almost exactly the same. The reason I love books is because I love the stories, and he just consumes his books in a different way. And I was so happy that I'd asked that question, because then I could see it's like, okay, so here on the surface, something that I would initially think was something that we really didn't have in common ends up being something we really do have in common.
Yeah, that's a really great example, and asking someone why, and what do they get out of it, and what new capacities does it give them, or how does it build them up and restore them to be who they are? What is it that they're getting out of it is a great question to ask, because instead of vetoing it, you're going to get to so much more richness about who that person is.
Yeah, and that's I just keep thinking about that list that I had and those things that were to be and were not to be in my man, and it that list, I don't even remember that list at this point. So in the wide world of dating and online dating and things like that, why go online? I know that this is a question, again, that has been answered a million times, but why did you go online, and what do you think is available there for people if they do go online?
Well, if you're 21, you don't need to go online. You can go to your college parties and meet people and go to bars, and it's all groovy. When you're 35 or 45 or 55 or 65, hitting the bar scene, not so pretty. Might not be the best spot. And the conversion rate for the real world is just really not that high. It's just not. You could meet someone at a grocery store, but chances are they're shopping because they're hungry, and they're not there to meet. They're not there for that. Or you might meet them out in the world, I don't know, on a train or something, but they're going somewhere. So their focus isn't going to be on meeting you when they're out in the world, unless they're maybe at a festival where there's a lot of hanging out. But how often do we get to do that? And the thing that I love about online, two things that I love about online, is it's where men go. I was looking for a man, so it's where men go to find women to date. That's what they're doing there. And for whatever purpose, I'll sort that as I meet the men. It's all different reasons, right? But that's where they're solely focused on meeting women. They're not doing that at the market. And the other reason I love online dating is because I was looking for more of a masculine type man, and masculine men will do things that are efficient. Type A personality, they'll be very direct and efficient. And online dating is very efficient. And I was asking my partner Dave, who has no business giving dating advice because he was single for all of 30 hours online. I was his first 121, met one.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I said to him, if you had been dating longer than 5 minutes, would you have tried different things like meetup groups or singles events? And he said, oh God, no. No way. Why would I do that? I don't have time for that. I'm gonna do what's efficient. Online is efficient. All right then.
It makes complete sense. My husband was exactly the same. He's an engineer, and he just goes for the efficiency, and it's so common sense. It's like that's where the guys go. So if you want a guy, go online. And I did not want to do the bar scene even a little bit. So thank you for that. That's awesome. If you have an opinion or perspective, which what are they called? Online thing would you go to? Because eHarmony, Match, OkCupid, Tinder. Which one would you recommend?
Can I get sued for saying who I wouldn't recommend? Oh, publisher.
I don't think so.
I would use, most of the sites are all the same. So if we're just strictly talking about back-end search engine algorithms, bells, whistles, and whatnot, they're all the same. The free ones, the paid ones, pretty much all the same. Although I'm kind of I just found out about Cupid.com, which has other things, and I might start like contributing. We don't know. So this is it could be a plug, but not really. But I didn't mean to. But the thing I like about it, there it is. The thing I liked about it is they have, and I haven't dug fully into the site, but it looks like they have video chat and more ways of connecting besides just real-time, quick, instant messaging and pictures, right? I think that there's like 3 or 4 different options for connecting, which using technology is really great. So they're pretty much all the same in terms of messaging capabilities, and there are men and women on all of the sites. So if you're in a small town and you don't have access to a lot of men or women, I would definitely go with a big company like a Match.com or one of those types of big companies because you're going to have a bigger pool. And the one company that I really don't like, and it's not that I have anything against this company, it's just the way that they set up their system, is eHarmony. And eHarmony, and any company like eHarmony that gives you all of these filters to get to people, is a big waste of your time. Now, I talked about earlier, one of the things that burn us out is time wasters. Time sucks, right? And I don't know if it's the same now, but back when I was looking at eHarmony, they wouldn't let you access each other until you'd answered certain questions, jump through certain hoops to get to the level where you could see each other and meet. And no. Online dating, if you could just wrap your head around what it's really for, is to get you in front of people you don't have access to in your day-to-day life and get on that coffee date as soon as possible. You read that profile, and if there's enough juicy stuff in that profile that you're like, oh yeah, interesting. What he does for a living, fascinating. I can spend 15 minutes with him at coffee. Get in front of him and get off the online bit. Online is not for relationship building and writing back and forth and talking on the phone. No. Just go watch an old episode of Catfish or the movie. No. You want to get in front of this person and make sure they're a real person, that they are who they say they are, and when you're face to face, that there's enough chemistry for either one of you to be interested in pursuing more. And we make the mistake of trying to vet and trying to get to know them and feel safe and all that kind of stuff that wastes a lot of time. So the long answer to what sites do I like the best, all of them that don't make you waste time.
Got it. Awesome. Well, we are coming up on our time here, Wendy, so I just want to ask you, if there was one thing that you could tell women, all women out there in the world about dating, what would it be?
Don't wait and don't give up. Don't wait. We'll wait till it's a good time or we feel like it or we've lost that weight. If I would have waited to lose the weight, I would still be waiting. We wait till work gets less busy or the holidays are over. There's never a good time. Don't wait to feel like it. It's like going to the gym. You're never going to feel like it, right? So don't wait. And then once you get going, don't stop. You don't stop eating if you had a bad meal. You don't stop working out at the gym just because you're sore once. You gotta keep going. So it's a really common question I get. What's the difference between the people like you and me who are successful at online dating and our person and the people with the horror stories? The only difference is you and I kept going. You and I both have horror stories. And it turned out for us because we didn't get stopped by that.
Awesome. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to mention one more time your fabulous book, 121 First Dates. You can get it for $10 at beyondword.com/Newman, Newman. Go grab it, read Wendy's amazing, hilarious stories, get the great advice, and get online and don't stop. Keep going.
Keep going.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Thanks, Whitney.